Off we go. Okay, everyone, as you come dropping in, welcome. We're going to give everyone a couple of minutes to get in here, and we will get started. So, Betsy, did you grow up in Utah? Have you been in Utah your whole life?
Yeah, I was born in California, but we moved here when I was a year old. So basically, I'm from Utah. So.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I mentioned earlier, like my wife is from Riverton. I went to Utah State, so I've got close ties in Utah. I love Utah. There's nothing like the mountains, right? I think the view from Riverton, towards the Wasatch Front is one of my favorites.
It really is. Beautiful. We love it here. It's funny because I grew up in South Jordan and we live in Riverton, so we're like, I didn't move far. We're not that adventurous. We moved like 3 miles from my house.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. Having some free babysitters close by, I'm sure, is handy.
That's right.
That's great. Well, let's go ahead and jump right in. So hi, everyone. My name is Jesse Randall. I'm the CEO of Sweater, and Sweater's objective is to open up the venture capital asset class for the whole world to be able to participate instead of just the wealthy. And we're well on our way to that. But part of our raw story in getting to market and providing value to the world is creating Founders Saga, which is why we're all here today and why we're here with Betsy. So, for us to go ahead and jump into this, we're going to hear more about Betsy's story. Feel free to jump into the Q&A and ask any questions that you might have. And, as we dissect this story, I'm excited to find out more about how you got into this and what we're able to jump into and learn from you. So welcome, Betsy. Really great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Beddy's. Okay. So Beddy's, I think, many people in our audience may not be familiar with your product because I think it's designed for parents. And so people that don't have kids may not be in the market for this, but give us the quick pitch of what Beddy's is, and then we can talk more about, kind of where Beddy's has arrived in the last few years.
Okay, so first off, Beddy's is spelled Beddys, and my name is Betsy, and I had no idea that they sounded similar. The whole reason I named it Beddy's was because it was like bed ease, like making your bed with ease, one zip at a time. So it's zipper bedding. Gotcha. and it started out with, I had twins with bunk beds, and trying to make a bunk bed is like impossible. But quickly after starting a Kickstarter, we found out that it wasn't just people with bunk beds that wanted it. It was RVs or just your king size bed. So it's like you said, you're like, if you don't have kids, then but no, it's become a huge, it's for every bed, really. So
yeah, so basically people hate making their bed at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, and we've had a really good year because people have been home in bed. So yeah,
that's the truth, isn't it? Okay. Well, I mean, what a straightforward product, but what an acute kind of pain point that you identified. Yeah. That's really, really powerful. So give us an idea of where Beddy's has arrived. I mean, I guess let's ask 2 questions. So when did you start it? And then give us an idea of, kind of the impact and reach that Beddy's has today.
So we started in 2014 selling product, and that's actually, we did a Kickstarter. And I'll give you that story in just a little bit, but so 2014, it took us a few years to get the product developed, but 2014 we started selling, and then now we're here, 7 years later, almost?
Right, yeah. So, holy cow, that's great. So, I mean, in terms of reach, I mean, like, can you give us an idea of kind of like the volume that you're at? I mean, like, how can you give us an idea of how big Beddy's is?
Yeah, we sell about 50,000 units a month. And we went from, I don't know, it's so crazy. You'd think I'd be able to memorize like all of my numbers. Like I could tell you what we made every year. And that's like about it until I look at like the spreadsheets. Is that terrible? But I know we're going through. So yeah, we've had a really good year. We projected to sell 75% over last year, and we've done over 170% growth year over year for this year. But every year we've had at least 100% growth. So.
Oh, that's incredible. That's really incredible. Okay, so one data point that came out was, and you said this was a couple of years ago, but you were ranked 247 on the Inc. 5000, or on the Inc. 500, which is incredible. I mean, obviously they only put 500 companies a year on that thing, But to qualify inside that is really amazing. I mean, when you started, you probably didn't expect that, I would suspect at least.
No, to be honest, I thought we were starting like a hobby, but we found out with manufacturing, we couldn't, it's like you go big or go home. We couldn't just we couldn't do a hobby. We had to like get production and get it going. So we got into the business world way quicker than we planned on. But it's been really fun. But neither me or my business partner who started the company with me have any business background. So you're, I always feel like, should I be giving any advice? No. But it's been, we've been really lucky to be where we are right now. So.
Yeah, well, I'd say it's at the level you're at, it's more than luck. Yeah, you're obviously doing something right. Well, that's incredible. Okay, so let's go back in time. We'll turn on the time machine
Okay.
for a minute, and let's go back to 2014.
Okay.
So you said that your co-founder and you used to take walks together, and you told her about this idea. I mean, where did this stem from?
So yeah, so my business partner and I, we lived like 5 houses away, and we'd go jogging every morning. And I would just tell her, like, like the morning run was when we bent. And so I'm like, someone has got to figure out something for bunk beds. This is so irritating. Why is no one else complaining? Like, why is it just me? And she's like, I don't know. I got rid of my bunk beds. So anyways, a little while later, I ended up, it was like a Saturday. I went over to my mom's house and I got my kids as comforters. And then I went to Hobby Lobby. I bought the longest zippers that I could find. And I'm like, Mom, here's what I'm envisioning, and some elastic. Like, it looks nothing like what Beddy's is now, but it was my solution. And I was a full-time hairdresser. And so I complained to all my clients about this bedding situation. And then I told them what I did. And they're like, Betsy, this is like a really good idea. I would buy this. Why? You should patent it. And so that's when I kind of started thinking, like, maybe this is a business idea. So anyway, that's how we kind of started.
I love it. So you built your own product first, and so
Mhm.
you didn't have a napkin. You actually built your product. That's awesome.
Yeah. I just wanted a solution for me. I was tired of them not making their beds. So
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, every mom would want that, right?
Yeah.
Make your life a little easier. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I mean, the concept of Beddy's then, I mean, I guess like my layman's way of saying is, I mean, it's like a fitted sheet that has the blanket structure built into it, right? With a zipper,
Yep.
like almost like a
So
sleeping bag / sheet,
yes,
right?
it's as if you're a sleeping bag and your comforter had a baby. Like, really, it's like the comfort. It feels like you're sleeping in your regular traditional bedding the way it's designed, but the function of a sleeping bag where you just zip it to make it. So that's the best description. That's why we depend so much on social media and video to show and just demonstrate how the product works. So anyway, that's what
Yeah,
it
that's
is.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so great. Well, it definitely makes life easier in the mornings. So, I mean, in terms of like, getting to that place where you decided to do something with it, I mean, you had some encouragement from your clients, probably encouragement from your current co-founder to do something. I mean, that's a pretty big decision to put yourself out there. I mean, what
Yeah.
what was going through your mind when you decided to take something that you just made for yourself and try to take it to the world?
Okay, so it's so random, but we'd taken a few years trying to find manufacturing, trying to find the perfect product, like really refining our design. And once we really got it refined and where we wanted it to be, like to have it manufactured, our first PO was $250,000, and I was like, oh, I do not have that, and neither did my business partner. So we're like, I heard that Shark Tank was in town. So I'm like, Angie, all we have to do is we just have to go down to Shark Tank and we'll get the money. And that's how we're going to start the business. She's like, okay, you go down there, I'll stay here. So when I looked at the application, it said you had to have a Facebook page. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'll make my Facebook page. And then we had a video that we had put together. And so I'm like, I'll put the video on this Facebook page. Well, I clearly wasn't very techie at the time because I put the video on my personal page, and we hadn't told anyone about it because we were still working on the whole or we hadn't gotten our patent yet. So anyway, so that was it went on my personal Facebook page, and I was getting like thousands of people coming to the website, and we had like 5,000 emails that next morning. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm like, Angie, I didn't mean to put it on my page, but it went, and everyone, like we thought it was going viral. So anyways, I go down to Las Vegas to try out for Shark Tank, and the guy was super nice. He's like, this is awesome. He's like, but let me just tell you, the sharks are going to eat you alive if you don't have, like, you've got to have a business plan. So I'm like, well, we were kind of talking about maybe doing a Kickstarter, and we knew nothing about Kickstarter. We knew nothing about marketing your Kickstarter, but we just thought that you just do a Kickstarter. And so we did the Kickstarter. And the good thing about that was it really tested the audience to like, see if it's a product that people really wanted, or is this something that just I needed or my business partner wanted. But we figured if we could get $100,000 from this Kickstarter, then I could take $75,000 out of my home equity line, and my business partner would do the same. And then that's how we get our first order funded. And so we actually ended up doing $108,000 in 40 days. So it's pretty exciting for us.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, so I mean, you've got Shark Tank and Kickstarter all rolling at the same time here. So I mean, did you end up being on Shark Tank later,
no,
or
I
they didn't
we
bring
got
you through?
callbacks. We got callbacks, and no, we didn't get on. Kind of a bummer, but that's okay.
Well, I know they're super brutal, but I mean, I guess you're kind of showing them who's who anyway, right?
That's right. No.
Okay, so I mean, that first order, I mean, you know, that's a fair amount of money to put down. So I mean, let me back up and make sure I have your timeline right. So you knew that your first PO was going to be 150,000, and you were planning on covering that yourselves.
Yeah, it was
Sorry,
250,000. Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes. Mhm.
Okay, so but you and your co-founder were going to use a home equity line of credit in order to fund that, but you
Because
did your
guess what?
Kickstarter campaign first.
Banks give you nothing. They
Oh.
want your first child for $20,000. I'm like, no, I might as well just do a home equity line at this point. So
Yeah, and that's the truth, isn't it? They really do want your first
yeah,
child for $20,000.
it's true.
If that, I mean, like collateral with the bank is really ridiculous. Okay, so you were willing and ready to do that, and then you did.
Mhm.
But before you put down that money personally, you ran your Kickstarter campaign and raised
Uh-huh.
$100,000. Is that right?
Yep. And we felt
Okay,
like
gotcha.
if we could fund through Kickstarter, then we knew that this idea would take off. Like that's what our mentality was. So
Yeah, that's awesome. So you got a portion of it covered. You covered the rest of that gap to that 250,000 yourself, and then you just put
yep.
in the whole order. I mean, that's a lot of units. How many units did you get out of that?
I can't even remember. I want to say it was like
So
4,000
that's
units.
a hard question from a long time ago.
I know.
That's from a long time ago.
So I'm gonna get out my calculator and kind of guess. No, we paid a ton of money for each unit. I'll be honest, and so our margins were garbage in the beginning, but that's like how it is with everything, right? We had no terms. We paid a crap load of money for our product, so it's just like the more time goes on, the more product we're buying, the better the pricing gets, and more terms we have with our factories, and so.
Okay. So in the early days then, I mean, you had some good things going for you. I mean, getting some validation from Facebook, I'm sure was very helpful for you to feel confident to do the Kickstarter campaign,
Yeah.
I imagine, right? The fact that they even wanted to talk to you. That's really cool. Most people don't get to do that.
Well,
Right?
the cool thing was too, is that it kind of gave us an idea of how many people were interested in the product. I mean, if I have like 300 friends on Facebook, like the fact that it went to 15,000 people over the weekend that were sending in requests for the product, where we literally just had a landing page. So I'm like, okay, people want the product, let's go.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Now I want to understand this more. So you posted about your product on your personal Facebook page, and that's what blew up.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I was like, where is this going viral? I'm like, I don't have 5,000 friends. And then I'm like, it's at 15,000. Yeah, we were so excited about watching all the views.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So were you gathering emails and that was the interest that you had?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. And then you leveraged that into doing your Kickstarter campaign, and that went well. So it was probably just a typical 30-day campaign. You raised $100,000. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Okay. So I love this path that you're going down, because it's very practical, right? I mean, like every step of success led to the next logical step. You know, you weren't trying to skip anything, which is it's a challenge I see with a lot of entrepreneurs, right? Is they want to jump right to an end point when that can be very difficult to do, you know, and to get the product right. So that's really exciting. All right, so we're back in your story. All right, so you get your first order in, and now you got to sell this stuff, right? So I mean, you delivered a lot of product to your Kickstarter recipients, right?
Yep.
but it sounds like you had a lot more inventory than just what you delivered to them, right? So now you had to go sell it. So tell me about what you did at that point.
So we sold the product to the Kickstarter people, but we still had a lot of inventory left. But we started selling through that inventory, and we're like, crap, we have to think 6 months ahead because the factory's wanting to order. We have to get that product here before this stuff that we have here sells out. But we also had to pay for it then too. That's the thing. Like, it's so hard to make money when you have no money because you can't fund these things. And so we actually had a friend, and he came along and he gave us $200,000 for a portion of our business, which is an awesome investment right now, knowing how well, but it was he was taking a risk at the time too. But so then we were able to get a second order. And from there we did so that first year we did about $250,000 in sales. And then the next year we did 1.7 million, and then 3.4. Then it went to 6 million, 13 million. And then this year we're ready to do over 30 million. So it's kind of exciting, the growth that we've had,
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. So that, I guess that trickery of having to order product before, you run out of inventory. I mean, that gap in that cycle is hard, especially when you're still early and you're like, well, do we order more or do we order the same? I mean, what was going through your mind? Because I mean, you didn't want to be overextended.
Yeah. And we just kept thinking, we're like, there's no way people are going to keep buying. Like, we're not going to have more customers again, and it just kept growing and growing. And so even this last year when we had predicted that we'd do like 75% growth. And so we had planned for that. And that's about how much product we had coming. And then April hit, like with COVID, and we had our biggest month. We grew over 300%, and we had 0 product left. And so the way we handled it is we had so many customers like, I don't care if I have to wait for, I don't care if I have to wait for 8 weeks, just let me give you my money. And then when the product comes, ship it out. So we started doing sell aheads. So that's how we got through this last year, is from basically April to August, we had 0 product. By the time the product was shipping, we were pre-selling it. And by the time it got here, it was already sold. So it was great cash flow wise, but it was a frustrating thing because I'm like, how many customers did we miss out on that wanted product that didn't want to wait too, So we had COVID, which nobody expected, but at the time we were like, do we halt everything when, we're all scared that nobody wants to buy anything. And then it turns out that it was exact opposite. Everyone is home in their beds and wants their beds made.
That's awesome. So Betsy, I have to say, I just realized I made a mistake at the beginning of this webinar. I hit record and I didn't hit start webinar. So all these people have been waiting outside, waiting to get in, and we've been talking to ourselves for the last 15 minutes.
We had a good conversation.
I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I want to back up a little bit and repeat a little bit of the story that we just went through, just to make sure everyone here is on the same page. So everyone that just jumped in, I'm so sorry. I totally made a mistake. I did not push the right button before we started. I did remember to hit record, but I did not start the webinar. Totally my fault. I'm really, really sorry. So we're going to back up and start close to the beginning and get you caught up on everything that Betsy's been building with Beddy's. Okay. So back at the beginning. We had such a good flow going too. This story was going so well.
So if I screw up, it's because of that.
All right, now I owe you lunch and dinner for that. Okay, so we're gonna go back to the beginning. So let's start with what Beddy's is. Give us a quick description of the product and where you're at today, and then let's kind of give everyone an idea of what you've accomplished so far and the trajectory that you're on.
Okay, you're gonna have to walk me through it. That was a lot of questions all in one.
Sorry, yeah. Let's just start with Beddy.
For everyone who just got here, I just got out of a plane crash, so my brain isn't. No, that's actually true, but I'm making excuses. Okay, so start with the first question again. What Beddy's is?
First question.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's Beddy's? Give everyone a quick idea of Beddy's.
Beddy's is zippered bedding, and you need a video to explain it honestly. But think of a sleeping bag and a comforter, had a baby, and that's Beddy's. So it's just I created it to make making your bed easier, especially for those hard to make beds, from bunk beds to RVs to hospital beds, or like any moving bed. They work on all of them. So
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, so it started originally with bunk beds, right? Because bunk beds are horrible to make beds on. Mm-hmm. And now it's expanded to all kinds of beds. I mean, it's not just kid beds. I mean, adults want these for their king size beds. I mean, the whole thing, right?
Yep. So
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so give everyone an idea of where Betty's is at today. You mentioned, I mean, when we were talking apparently alone 5 minutes ago, you mentioned some revenue targets that you guys had hit. So and it's really
Yeah.
exciting. So give everyone an idea of, kind of where you guys are at now.
Okay, so we started, well, like it's cooler if you hear where we started,
Yes.
$250,000 our first year. Like, so we started at $250,000. The next year we went to 1.7, from there 3.4, 6.2, 13 million. And then this year we'll do over 30 million. So kind of exciting.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah. Oh, that's so incredible. So part of that, you mentioned that you were ranked number 247 on the Inc. 500 a couple of years ago, which is
Yeah.
an incredible place to be even one time. So that's absolutely amazing. And then having over 100% year-over-year growth every year is also just phenomenal. So, congratulations on building something people really want. I think that
Thank you.
that's obviously at the real heart of what every entrepreneur dreams of. So it's
Yeah.
incredible that you've been able to achieve that.
We've
So
been super grateful.
yeah. All right. So let's go back in time and give everybody the quick story of where you started. I mean, your first year revenues were 250,000, but you started well before you ever started selling a product. So give everyone an idea of where this idea came from and how you evolved this towards becoming a real business.
Okay, so it started with, I had twins with bunk beds, and trying to make a bunk bed is like impossible. So I was super frustrated trying to make the bunk beds. I ended up just making my own solution for myself. But I had complained to everybody because I was like, what bedding are you using? If you have bunk beds, why are you not complaining? And everyone, like my business partner included, she's like, well, I just got rid of my bunk beds because they couldn't make them and it was just messy all the time. So I took all the bedding over to my mom with the zippers and elastic and everything. And I told her what I wanted to do. And she helped me make my first prototype. And when I made it, and my kids loved it, first of all. And I showed all my clients and friends, and they're like, Betsy, this is a genius idea. I would want this. So you should patent it. And so I'm like, well, maybe it really is a good idea. Maybe other people would want it. And so that's when I went to my business partner, who is my longtime running friend. And we'd go jogging every morning. I tell her my issues, and I'm like, we should start a business. She's like, what do you want? What business are we starting? And I'm like, the bedding. So anyway, that's how it all got started. I honestly was just trying to find a solution for myself.
Yeah. Okay. That's fantastic. I mean, I think that at the center, it really all starts there, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I guess on the last interview, which you weren't on, that entrepreneur was doing the same thing. He built something to solve his own problem and then was able to expand past that. So I think that that's a common theme that we continue to see. So let's get into what happened next, right? So you decided to do something about it, and some very fortunate things happened, right? So you started talking to Shark Tank, and you posted some stuff on your personal Facebook page. Tell us that quick story.
So I posted on my Facebook page thinking I was posting on this Beddy's page, but I didn't know how to do. I was clueless. Anyways, posted it on my personal
Facebook
page.
was horrible in 2014. It was horrible.
It was so confusing. I thought I was posting on that page, but it was clearly my own page. Anyways, I had like 5,000 views that night, and I'm like, holy cow, I only have 300 friends. Why are there 5,000 views? And then it went to 15,000 views, and our website literally was just a landing page to collect emails. And so we collected over 5,000 emails and of people who are wanting the product. They're like, how do I get this? Where is this at? And so we knew there was a need. And then I went down to Shark Tank thinking, oh, all you have to do is you go down and you tell them your product. They're going to think it's amazing. And then they're going to give me $250,000. So that's not what happens. And I went down there, showed him the product. The guy was actually really cool. He's like, this is awesome. He's like, but the sharks will eat you alive if you don't get a business plan. So I'm like, well, we kind of thought about doing a Kickstarter. He's like, yes, do the Kickstarter, get started, and then come back and we'll talk, So we did get callbacks, but it didn't go further than that. So we did have a knockoff go on there, and they're like, I think they've done $20,000 last year in sales. So maybe we are better off on our own. So,
that's anyway. Awesome. So you were able to pitch in the preliminary stuff. You were never on the show, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's important for people to understand. So you didn't have to go on Shark Tank to find success, but you came out of that, right? And you said, we want to do a Kickstarter campaign. That was a big conclusion.
Yeah. Well, the reason is our first order was $250,000, and I didn't have that. My business partner didn't have that. So we thought, well, if we do a Kickstarter campaign, then we'll get $100,000, and then we'll each put $75,000 off of our home equity line, and that's how we're going to fund our first PO. And the cool thing about doing a Kickstarter is it really tested the market. Like, is it just me and my friends that want the bedding, or is it like a lot of people? So we did $108,000 in 40 days, and we knew that the idea was ready to go.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so we didn't talk about this last time, but I want to ask you some more questions about that Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 2014, Kickstarter had only been around for a few years. It was still relatively new. How much effort did you have to put into that to get it to work? Was it mostly an organic thing, or did you have like a marketing machine behind it? I mean,
we had no clue about marketing things. I didn't know. Like, I was not a business person. I was a hairdresser, and my business partner was a stay-at-home mom. Like, that's the experience we had. So when we went on, we advertised to those people who'd seen the video and requested an email. So the first day we did, I want to say like $30,000. We're like, yes. And then it went flatline, and we're like, oh crap, what are we going to do? So it was when we went on, so we went on a couple local TV stations, but it was Good Things Utah we went on. And the funny thing is while I was on the show, my microphone fell off, and I just see it, and the batteries just go rolling. And Nisha, the host, looks at me, she goes, keep talking. And I'm like, and like, she's just leaning into me because she has her mic attached to her shirt. And so I'm just trying to remember what I'm saying. So I'm like, I ruined it, but it ended up going crazy. She texted me later that day, and she's like, Betsy, our Facebook page is going nuts. They love your product. I'm like, no way. So we had signed up to go to the What a Woman Wants trade show here in Utah, and that weekend, and we had announced that on Good Things Utah. So we had crowds and crowds of people just standing around us showing the product, and they can't even buy it. I'm like, well, if you guys think this is really cool, will you go sign up for our Kickstarter? I mean, that's like the extent of marketing we did. I'm embarrassed to say this now. Like, you look back and you're like, oh, bless your heart, but we learned a ton.
Yeah, well, I mean, what a testament to product market fit. I think, if that's even a phrase you like to use, but I mean, like, just building a product that people actually want, right?
Yeah.
You put it out there, and they just organically are taking it up and talking about it. I mean, that's the best validation you could ever get. So I think that's incredible. I mean, it's a surefire sign of having hit the nail on the head. So what a great story. I absolutely love it. So not everything was sunshine and roses, though. I mean, like, we talk about, scaling the company up to the point that it was today, or where it's at today. I mean, that first order was still very stressful, right? I mean, I think you mentioned to me your first PO requirement for your large batch was going to be $250,000. You raised about 100,000 on Kickstarter. So you still had to cover the gap. I mean, that's kind of a nerve-wracking moment, right?
Yeah.
I want to add, so how did you feel about that?
Those first years, I got shingles twice. I swear I felt like garbage all the time. And I was like, I declare bankruptcy. No, I just wanted anyone to buy this company from me to pay off my debt. Like, it felt so exhausting. You're not making money. I'm doing double the amount of hair to try to pay for this dang business that I started. But there was still that like drive behind it. Like, we'd hear from these customers, and I remember one of our first customers from Kickstarter emailed us, and she's like, I want you to know that my son, who has autism, has every night I've had to hug him tightly to get him to go to sleep. She goes, I put the Beddies on and I zipped him in, and he went to sleep immediately. She's like, this changed my life. So I'm like, okay, we did something really cool. We're changing people's lives, which is so crazy through bedding. But there were just like those little things that would happen that just it's what kept us going along the way,
Yeah, that's wonderful. So, I mean, like, those kind of moments, like, I think that there can be a fantasy that just because you have a really great Kickstarter campaign, or, like, whatever, you did a lot of revenue in your first year, that things must be awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like, the first couple of years were pretty darn stressful.
Yeah,
like,
we didn't pay ourselves for a few years. And then when we did, it was like $1,000 a month, So it's like, like, nobody wants the business when it's not making money, and neither do you. And then it's like, all of a sudden you start making money. You're like, I like this. I could like hire employees to help me out. This is awesome. It's fun. And then it's like other people become interested. It's like the banker that, they say that bankers, what's the saying? Like, they don't give you an umbrella until the rain stops. And then you're like, wait, whatever that saying. I botched it, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't need the money anymore, and now you're offering the money.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. So, I mean, you and your co-founder were in on this from the get-go, right? I mean,
Yep.
it sounds like, so you were still, we said this earlier, so the audience doesn't know, but you were doing, you were a full-time hairstylist during all this, right?
Yep.
So how long did you keep that up before you didn't have that day job anymore and you were still doing this?
Yeah, about 3 years. So the crazy thing is
Wow.
I had clients, they would come at 6 a.m. and I do hair from like 6 to noon. And then I'd try to work Beddy's from 12 to 6. And then I would do hair again at night. Like, I swear to you,
Oh my
it was awful. Like, don't do this, people. But we didn't have
God.
another choice. And, like, we didn't know any better. So we just knew that this eventually was going to be good. Like, we thought eventually it would be good, but it was hard, hard work.
Yeah. Oh, so much hard work. My gosh. Okay. So you must have a very special relationship with your co-founder. I mean, you guys
Yeah.
went through a few years of real hard times.
Yeah. I
So
remember.
tell us more about your relationship with her. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. First of all, there's literally not a better business partner in the world. Like, if you met us both, you would be like, you guys are exact opposites, and we are. But we fit like perfectly together. She does everything that I hate and I do all the things she hates. Like, how much better could it be? But like, I remember we did this launch with this YouTuber, and she's the biggest mom YouTuber on YouTube. And so we're like, oh my gosh, this launch is going to be amazing. We had the website guy getting everything ready, and the website went down right as they were uploading their video. And I'm like, oh my
Oh
gosh,
no.
like, here we thought we're going to make millions. And then all of a sudden it went to our website's shut down. Like, there were several of these kind of things, but that felt the most devastating. I think at the time, I was bawling. I'm like, we're just never going to make it. I think I called my business. It was like every other day. Like, I call my business partner. I'm like, we're never going to make it. She's like, no, we're going to be fine. And then the next day she'd call me, we're never going to make it. I'm like, no, we are going to make it. So it's good we had each other. One of us was always depressed. Anyway.
Oh, you guys sound like quite a duo. So if I can dig into that, into the nature of your responsibilities, then, I mean, you
Yeah.
say you do things that, she doesn't like, and you're doing the things she doesn't. So how do you split that up? I mean, did you know that from the beginning, or did you kind of just
Yeah.
discover it and roll into it?
No, I picked her wisely. So we actually, like, I felt like financially we were similar, like in similar places. I wanted somebody who spent money similar to me, that or budgeted similar to me, and so I felt like we were both similar in that way. But like, I do all the marketing, I do the design, new product, and she does bookkeeping, she does operations, ordering, all of that kind of thing, HR. Like, so really, like, I tell her all the time, I'm like, thank you for doing all those awful things, and she's like, no, thank you for doing all those awful things. So anyway, I think I have the better end of the deal, but apparently she doesn't like what I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I mean, you've grown well past the two of you now.
Yeah.
So how, I mean, like, that's quite a transformation to have to go through. So you probably can't speak for your co-founder, but for you, I mean, growing the company to the level that it's at now, I mean, it's a very different animal. So
Yeah.
what was it like for you to kind of like get out of the weeds and get into a different set of weeds, right? I
Do
mean,
you
as the
know that
company
that
grew, it
is so
changed, right?
crazy? Yeah, it really did. It really changed about a year and a half ago when we hired the girl who came in to do product under me and work with me. She took so much off my plate, but I had been in the weeds so much that it was hard for me to get out of it. And to be 100% honest, it wasn't until I was in a plane crash in August that I couldn't go into work for 3 months. I couldn't,
Oh my gosh.
physically, mentally couldn't do it. And it forced me to go step away and just trust that they could do it. And guess what? They killed it. Like, they killed it without me. I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm no good. You guys are doing so good without me. But it was so cool. And I think, things happen in life to teach you lessons. And I've learned tons of lessons in the last 3 months. But that I didn't realize that I could step away until I was forced to step away. And I've heard that you're
Mhm.
supposed to do that, but I didn't trust it. What everyone's saying
Yeah.
isn't right.
But now, I mean, now you've got quite a, use the word testimony. I think I'm in the wrong forum for that. But, I mean, you've got real life experience saying that's not the case. I mean, being able to hand
Yeah.
off to team members is important. So, I
Yeah.
mean, moving forward, then, I mean, you've stepped away and you realize that's the case. So moving forward, I mean, what is your mentality shift like in that regard?
So many things changed, and I'll probably get emotional about this, but I was like, there were so many people that did so many good things for us, like from the doctors in the hospital to like people I hadn't seen for years. They came in and were helping or bringing meals. And I'm like, gosh dang it, if my business can run, without me there all the time, maybe I need to be doing something better. And so I talked to my business partner. I'm like, what could we do? Like we've always wanted, like when we could afford to, I wanted to do like some type of charity or something. And we just talked, and one day she's like, Betsy, we've always loved Make-A-Wish. Why don't we just start sponsoring these kids, And so that's what we just decided to do. In fact, we just did our first one last month and it was really cool. And it's nice that like we can look for these other opportunities because we're not stuck in doing these day-to-day things every day, So anyway, it's been kind of cool.
That's awesome. So yeah, I mean, you're like in the middle of this evolution. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you convinced your business partner to do the same thing and to kind of come with you? Or has she been
and we're still involved. I don't want it to sound like we're not involved, but it's not in the same way. Like I just said, when I come back, I don't need to come back the way I was. I want to come back and let's be better and do something different. And I just think, when you kind of do something good as a company, like you just keep growing. And that's been true. Like we had our best months these last couple months. And I'm like, maybe it's just so that we'll keep doing some more good things. I don't know. That's so dumb, huh? Probably everyone's like, oh, you're crazy. But
no, not at all.
We've been really lucky. And so after this experience, it just makes you just appreciate people and want to do good for other people too. How about that?
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Well, I mean, if we can take just a second, we kind of jumped in and glossed through this mega life event you just had with the plane crash. I mean, that is not something that happens to every founder, clearly. Would you mind sharing just a few details of what happened and why you needed to step away from the business?
Yeah, so it was August 7th. We just were with some friends and they're like, hey, let's go for a flight. It's beautiful. The weather's great. There won't be much turbulence. And we come around the Uinta Mountains and lost power. So the pilot, who was our friend, he's like, I don't know what's going on. I've lost power. You could see and in fact, my husband recorded it. So that's the only, like the naked eye, I didn't notice the propeller not spinning normal. He was just saying it wasn't working, whatever. Anyways, we end up crashing and we crashed actually in like, there couldn't have been a more perfect spot. There were campers who were EMTs that were there that came running to help us.
Oh my gosh.
Me and my friend, so it went the pilot, my husband, then me and my friend, and then my twin boys behind us. And all of us were actually okay, except for the pilot, and my husband suffered spinal cord injuries. My husband actually got the very brunt of it all. The engine came in on him, so he broke his legs, spine, pelvis, his face, teeth, like literally everything head to toe was broken on my husband. These life flight, the EMT people came to help us, and honestly, they were who saved my husband's life because it took an hour and a half for life flight to get there. Anyways, long story short, my husband's been in, rehab, in the hospital for a long time. And then when he got home, it was like, I had to care for him constantly. So it forced me to be away. So I couldn't go to the office. I couldn't physically even take one more thing into my brain. So that's why I stepped away.
Yeah. Well, to have the story evolve, your husband's doing better now, right?
Yep.
And making positive progress.
It's literally a miracle. He's like, last week he started walking with crutches. Like, I mean, from going from like, will he live to will he make it to the hospital to will he walk to crutches? Like, it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what a life experience there. I mean, not every founder will have that kind of impetus to step away from the business for a minute.
Yeah.
From what I'm hearing from you, it's been a very positive thing for you to have stepped out of the business and gain a new perspective. If you were to advise other founders who, may be very deep in their business and have been for a long time, what would you say to them to convince them that maybe they need to take a break or somehow adjust their role?
Yeah, I think you have to, like, even just to go for, like, I didn't even leave for 5 days. I mean, I was checking in every day. Like there was not a day that I didn't check in. That's how crazy I was. so even to go away for like 2 weeks, like make people think they cannot get a hold of you, 2 or 3 weeks, just to see how far you can go, and then do it again. Because the cool thing is that came out of this is learning that my employees could excel with me gone. Like they could make decisions that I was making for them. They could do all these things. I'm like, they were doing a phenomenal job. It's just I had to let them do it. It's like, you kind of have to let them grow. And I don't. It's so dumb that I couldn't step away, but I'm grateful now.
Yeah, well, I mean, really, I think that every founder has so much that they can learn from that experience. There's another entrepreneur that we interviewed a couple of weeks ago, and he built a very successful business and sold it for over $100 million. And about 6 months after that, with cash in his pocket and whatever else, he totally had a complete breakdown. He had everything that most people would ever want, and yet he got to a place where he just couldn't handle it anymore. And since then, he's started a business that's completely focused around founder mental health and how you take care of yourself when you're doing so many stressful things, right? And when you're in this place for so long. So this is a theme that I keep seeing come up, that it's so important to make sure that you as the founder are taking care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
And that you should and can trust the people that you bring in, right?
Yeah.
Kind of, make sure that you don't clip their wings. So I love hearing this from you, because this is such a good, consistent message for our audience to hear.
Yeah. Just do it, or else you might get in a plane crash to force you into it. No, I'm just kidding. So it really was a good thing for me to step away, and it is. I think it really is important, and I think I can see how after you sell a company, that's been your baby, that's been your number one focus for how many years, and that's why it was so hard for me to step away. Is I can't step away and let them ruin what I've worked on this whole. That's what you think if you step away, that the business will get ruined or something, but it ended up, and they did better. They did really well. I'm like, well, crap, how am I supposed to take credit for this when you do well when I'm gone? So
I'm sure you're very good at handing off credit. I'm sure you're very good at it. Well, why don't we just finish up with any words of wisdom that you might have for anyone that might see this interview. I mean, looking at entrepreneurs who are in the trenches or thinking about jumping into it, from what you've learned the last 5 or 6 years, what would you really want them to know?
I think the number one thing is don't pretend like you know everything. If you are willing just to admit, I don't know, everyone around you is willing to help. Like, it's really cool. Like, if you can meet with other founders, other owners, and tell them your problems and be open, then they oftentimes, we all are having the same issues, and that you have just this army of people to help you with what you're going through. You can help them. You're always having the same issues. So don't pretend like you know everything. Like, admit what you don't know, and then they will be able to help you. That kind of a dumb, I don't know.
No, that's awesome. I think that's just a high level of self-awareness, right? And kind of admitting that you have weak points that you can get covered by other people. It's important.
Yeah.
So
that's my 2 cents.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, Betsy, thank you for spending time with us. And I'm sorry for the rocky start.
No.
But I think this is going to be one of our best interviews. I loved it because I think we already had like a sense of energy by the time we let everybody in. And your story is really inspiring. There's so many people that I think have product ideas and are nervous about taking a step out there. And I mean, the reality is that not everyone will end up with the level of success that you've seen. And that's okay, right? But to have the courage to take a stab at it, because if you never do it, you'll never know, right?
Yeah.
And to know that success doesn't come overnight, right? That it takes a long time and a lot of grinding to make it happen.
Yep. It does, and that sucks.
That's okay.
No.
I mean, I think it's good to know that going in, right?
Yeah.
And to understand it before. But thank you. So everyone that's on, thank you for joining us today. Having Betsy here from Beddy's and being able to hear her whole story has been really inspiring. Thank you for spending time with us. We'll get this recording up so that we can share it with the world. And thank you again, Betsy. You're awesome.
Thank you. All right.